and I really appreciate it. And on behalf of my family, we thank you very much. I think I'll keep it short and sweet. We see pink ribbons across the town all month long. So raising awareness for stage 4, which really needs the most research and the most funding. Stage 4 is terminal and there is no cure. So Mediviber is the only organization that 100% of the donations go towards funding stage 4 research. So I do have a couple flyers. They didn't print beautifully on my printer at home. But this is our yearly fundraiser on October 13th that you can feel free to tune into. There's more information on here and my fundraising page if anybody's interested. So thank you so much.
I will swap you this for the flyers.
Thank you so much.
Right,
I really
thank you.
appreciate
Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you, Dr. Becker. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have minutes from the meeting of the Mayor and Common Council on September 25th. I have a motion to approve the minutes. To approve, Mr. President. There's a motion by Mr. Kavach. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Mr. Hoff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes seem to have the ayes have it.
Council President.
I'm
sorry.
Can you control him, Mr. Kavach?
You got one, please.
I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare you. It was my president. We have 3 items on the consent calendar this evening. We have a motion to approve the consent. Motion to approve. The motion by Mr. Dayhoff. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Gilbert. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is approved. Report from the mayor, Dr. Becker.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things to report on this evening. I'll go through them a little bit quickly. On Tuesday, September 28th, I attended the Magic Board meeting. As you know, the city helps to support Magic, the Mid-Atlantic Gigabit Innovation Collaboratory. It's always a mouthful to say. And so they went over some of their goals for the year, some of their upcoming events as well. Their Good Game Fest is coming up, and their last Good Game on Main Street, which is open to children and their families, will be on this Friday the 13th. Let me scroll ahead here. On Wednesday, October 4th, I talked shortly. I did an interview with Mike McMullen, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, about water conservation efforts that we've been undertaking within the city and also what residents can do in order to conserve water. I know it might sound a little ironic given that we recently received some rain, but we are still quite far below where we should be this time of year. And so that episode of Chamber Chat aired on Sunday on WTTR. And then the last 2 things I have on Friday, October 6th, I welcomed Brooke Learman to downtown Westminster. Brooke Learman is our comptroller for the state of Maryland. We had a great visit with the comptroller. We toured some city sites that we are interested in obtaining some funding for. We went to Magic and we looked at their autonomous robotics innovation center called ARC. We had a really great trip. She was really impressed with what we are doing in Westminster. As I often say, we might look like a small city, but we are not a small town city. The things that we're doing with the fiber and the water recycling and all these other upcoming projects, Wakefield Valley, there are things much larger than what a city our size usually does. And so we had a great visit. We stopped through some businesses on Main Street. On our walk up Main Street, we pointed out the clock tower, which has been lit in orange. Go O's. And of course we ended at Covalent because where else did you end your evening on Main Street? Saturday morning was the fire muster and parade. Council members Ann Gilbert and Dan Hoff and I, Councilmember Dan Hoff rode on the back of a fire engine. What? Well, I know you could. That's right.
I had to hang on.
We were on the back of a 1950s, like a old fire engine. You had to hold on because it got a little bumpy. You had to sort of sway with the bumps. I don't think there were a lot of shocks in there. And I would say it was a great parade. I love parades. I enjoyed it. The number of fire trucks that were in attendance was amazing. I would say the only downfall was that the tarp of the back of the fire truck was covered with water. So every time the fire truck would take off, water would sweep off the back and come down and come all over us standing at the back of the truck. So you would have ended up soaked that day. I don't think the rain dampened anyone's spirits. There was still a nice crowd on Main Street once you got up towards the square with 27. So that is all I have, Mr. President.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dr. Becker. Move on now to reports from committees. We'll begin with our liaison to the Carroll County Arts Council, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. We continue to work on the strategic plan. We just recently had our annual meeting and reviewed the annual report. And Mr. President, I still need to get you that information about the mural project because we have state funding for that. So I think it would be good to bring that before the council.
Why don't we reach out to Ms. Griffith and just ask her?
Well, I have. I'll do that again.
Okay.
We have a meeting coming up on Wednesday, but I'd really like to get the council's blessing on that so we can move forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Economic and Community Development Committee, Mr. Hoff.
Yes, Mr. President, as instructed by the council at our last council meeting on September 25th, Economic and Community Development Committee relooked at the Cannabis Overlay District Map Amendment at our October 4th meeting and decided, all things considered, to recommend proceeding forward with the map amendment ordinance as originally introduced. I'll get into more particulars as to why when we discuss the adoption of that ordinance later tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. On behalf of the Finance Committee, we did meet last week, and I will just note that we discussed a couple of issues with the city administrator, one of which was moving forward with the Park Mobile app. I'm sure she'll share more about that with us later on. But we're pleased about the progress there. And we also discussed future items that might be budget amendments that some other things like that. So that was just for me. Personnel Committee, I have nothing to report for that. Public Safety, Mr. Kavach.
Thank you, Mr. President. On October 3rd, Police Officer Dominic Frank received his Police Officer First Class designation following successful completion of his probationary period. PFC Frank is doing an excellent job. He is now a field training officer and is conducting field training for 2 new police officers. PFC Frank came to the Westminster Police Department as a certified Maryland police officer with several years of municipal policing experience. He has proven to be a valuable addition to the agency. On October 6th, Chief Ledwell attended a joint Maryland Chiefs of Police Association and Maryland Sheriff's Association meeting in Laurel, where the groups were briefed by the Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown regarding the October 1st law changes that transitioned the authority from the state's attorney, the county state's attorneys, to the Maryland AG's office to charge Maryland police officers with crimes resulting from officer-involved deaths and failure to intervene in use of force incidents or failure to provide appropriate medical attention. Lastly, 4 police department recruits continue to successfully complete training at the Carroll County Sheriff's Police Academy. And of course, we're hoping they all make it through to the finish because we can use them in the department. That's the end of my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gavachi. Public Works, Ms. Gilman.
The Main Street Water Main project is underway, as a lot of people have seen the pipeline running along the right-hand side if you're going down Main Street. The phase 1 work of the new valves and pipes located at the intersection at Longwell Avenue and East Main Street. Phase 1 is 95% complete. Preparations for phase 2 are underway. Phase 2 will consist of the water main replacement and service connection along East Main Street from Longwell Avenue to Railroad Avenue. The temporary bypass line is assembled along the westbound lane of East Main Street. The service connections will start to be transferred this week to the temporary bypass line to allow for the construction of the new water main and service connections. This transfer of the service connection to the temporary bypass line will require an approximately 60 minutes of shut-off time to the building to allow for the transfer of the connection. There will be notification given out to all the building owners as soon as the date of that transfer is known via email, door hangers, and our website. Other than that, Public Works is probably getting ready to man their raincoats and get ready for our next event, which would fall under Parks and Rec, but it would be the oyster stroll. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert, and I was gonna say, well, before you do, I was gonna say that Ms. Imholson and her staff, what a remarkable job you've done in managing the Main Street project, because I think everybody's expecting far more disruption than we've had, and it's really just been amazingly smooth and easy to navigate along Main Street. So I know you spent a lot of time working on planning that with the team. Thank you very much for minimizing the disruption to all the city residents.
You're welcome. Most of that credit goes to Mr. Dick. He's very, very good at project management.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. Thank you. All right, Parks and Recreation.
Okay,
Let's go.
so, other than Ms. Kruger's probably saying a few prayers of no rain between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Not sure how that's really gonna happen, but we'll go with that. So the oyster stroll is getting ready to happen this Saturday. On top of that, I'd like to report on the pool phase 2 progress. So there's a couple bullet points on 10-12. The learning pool and splash pad and lagoon area will be plastered. On October 17th, fire extinguishers around the perimeter of the fence of phase 2 will be installed in preparation for the health department inspection on October 19th or 20th. And on October 23rd and 24th, phase 2 operations, training, and winterization of the main pool will occur. Phase 2 pools must stay filled with water for 30 days to cure the plaster properly. So winterization of the learning pool and splash pad and lagoon will take place the week of November 13th after the plaster has fully cured. And we look forward to the grand opening and ribbon cutting of the completed Westminster Municipal Pool Complex prior to opening in the 24 season, which all of you will be notified at that point. I think I stand with that.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Technology Committee, Mr. Bayhoff.
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next one, Dr. Becker, you had something else.
Yes, I was remiss. I wanted to announce this evening, I had mentioned it at the last council meeting as well. But we will announce it again tonight that trick or treating will take place on Halloween. That is a Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. in the city of Westminster.
Very good. Thank you. That's important to make sure that you understand. I never understand.
Do it on Halloween.
We do it on Halloween. I never understand people who try to move it to another night because you just get kids out 2 nights.
Extra candy.
That's right.
Yeah, the kids probably love it.
We'll be buying your place.
Turn the lights off if this is. Time now for council comments. This is the opportunity for council members to share their thoughts or concerns on any item that is not elsewhere on the agenda of part of their career. With Mr. Kalachi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Typically, I don't have a whole lot, but I did want to make 2 quick comments. One, and they're really interrelated to each other. Things have been incredibly busy lately. I've been over at 56 more in the past month or so than I think I have been typically in probably a 6-month period. And I just wanted to compliment Ms. Imholz and let everyone know how hard she's been working to navigate us through some, pretty challenging issues that have been popping up. And I think she's really done a wonderful job here of late, being really on top of these things. And she's pushing us to work hard, and that's what we should be doing. And I appreciate that. I also wanted to just quickly mention, all of us spend a fair amount of time doing this, but I have to say Councilman Huff has been just unbelievable the past few weeks dealing with almost the same kind of issues Ms. Imhoff says, and a lot of them have fallen either related to planning and zoning or in economic development. And I know he's been working incredibly hard. He's done a good job representing us in front of some other bodies and taking care of some things related to some legal issues. So I just wanted to compliment both of them and say thank you for the hard work that you guys have been putting in here late, and it doesn't go unnoticed. That's all, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kavachi. Mr. Bayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wanted to be sure to thank the city for all the help with the 200th anniversary of the Westminster Fire Department, the antique muster. There were a lot of folks in Westminster from out of town, and I think the city police and the police department went out of their way to make sure that everything went smoothly, and more than one firefighter from outside of town complimented me on how well it's going to be handled, everything. And that's really good stuff. Also want to thank the mayor for facilitating Brooke Learman coming to town to come forward. That's good stuff. She sits on the Public Works Committee down in Annapolis. She is a critical opinion maker when it comes to projects that we have in the city of Westminster, and she's been a great team player. And it was wonderful to have an opportunity to showcase some of the initiatives in which the state of Maryland has helped us with. And then I also want to make sure that we get in the record how much I appreciated working with Council President Roy Kavachi. I must have been in your office every other day. I knew the back door into his office, and I was there almost every other day going over things. And we really moved a lot of projects forward. We had a lot of really hard work to do back then. We had a lot of deferred maintenance and some things that we really needed to take care of, and we really did it. We got it done. So thank you for all your work, and it's great to see you. Thank you. Have a good one, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bayhoff. Ms. Gilbert.
The other thing I want to add to everybody else's comment, I just wanted to congratulate the winners of the Philanthropist of the Year, Rita's Closet, Action for Kindness, Diane Jones, and our own previous mayor, Joe Dominic. So the ceremony was held at Carroll County Arts Center, and September 27th. It was done very well. It's a great location. Congratulations to all.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Mr. Hawes.
Mr. President, I'll just comment again on the October 6th visit with Brooke Learman. Was just fantastic. For us to have that opportunity to interact with some of our state officials is just very beneficial to us as a city. And it was a great opportunity to kind of express some big projects that we're working on for the future, as well as, you know, kind of show her around downtown and take her to some businesses. One of the things we did get to do earlier in the day that not everybody on council was able to make, but the council, you were there, Council President, as well as Councilwoman Gilbert. And it really was my first real in-depth tour of Ellsworth Cemetery. And that was just phenomenal. I forget the last name. Is it Diane?
Yes, Diane.
Diane Jones, the same.
No, it's not Jones.
Different. I forget her name, but anyway, phenomenal tour. Brooke was fascinated by it, and quite frankly, I was too. It just is a really phenomenal site, and I encourage everybody in the Westminster area to check it out and kind of research into it. It's a really big deal, and I'm so glad that we annexed it into the town. I think it was a really cool thing. I also enjoyed the fire muster as well. The mayor was the one that mainly got wet just because she picked the wrong location. The tarp, the tarp was kind of down towards her side, so she was really the one that got all the water. Councilwoman Gilbert and I were just fine.
I'll take my shoes, I'm still dry. Some of us wore rain boots, so we were good.
Thank you, Council President. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hawes. I'm certainly sorry I missed the fire muster.
You could have
And I know.
gotten water run off the back of the car.
It would have been worth it. Yeah, I just, don't really have anything else to add to that. Except that, it was a pleasure to welcome you around, and I think that sort of pulling back and looking at it in a larger sense. We had the governor, several weeks ago when we had, the street line winds go through and knock down on the poles on several weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago, but the governor, lieutenant governor came up with that, and, those were, unfortunate, but we had, comptroller come, opportunity to showcase some things that, we're doing here. As we said to her, a lot of people may think, wow, in the middle of Carroll County, in a small town, but we're doing big things here, and we have been for years, and I think it's valuable to show, leaders in Annapolis that, when they entrust us with state funds to do these things, we make good use of them, and important things happen to serve our citizens and improve our community. So I'm excited to be able to tell that story whenever we have the chance, and, it was a pleasure to be able to do that day. So that's all I have. Move on now to ordinances and resolutions. We have two items before this evening. The first is adoption of ordinance number 2023-09, an ordinance of the mayor and common council of Westminster, Maryland, amending the adopted budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, which is fiscal year 2024. This is fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 1. Ms. Ryan, you are over there. Yes, we'll turn to our finance director, Ms. Rogers, to explain. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President. On September 25th, staff introduced fiscal 2024 budget amendment number 1, ordinance 2023-09, which recommended $268,564 of total additional appropriations for the year. Since that introduction, no changes have been made to the ordinance. So at this time, staff is recommending adoption of this ordinance.
All right, thank you very much. We had a presentation on this at the last meeting. I will just mention that the finance committee has looked at it pretty carefully as well. Our practice, as you all know, has been since Ms. Imhoff has been here, is to try and regularize changes in the budget by formally adopting budget amendments along the way. I think that's a good government practice, and I'm glad we're picking that up. Need to get a motion on the floor to get us started. We have a motion to approve, a motion to adopt ordinance number 2023-09.
Motion to adopt.
And a motion by Mr. Dayhoff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gilbert. Does anybody else have any questions or comments in addition to discussion of the last meeting?
My questions were answered last time. I just was noting my questions were answered last time, so.
Very good, thank you. All right, anyone else? Hearing none, no further discussion, we'll move on to a vote. All those in favor of adoption of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it. Ordinance is adopted. Next item is adoption of ordinance number 2023-06. Westminster adopting a sexual map amendment to repeal the former medical cannabis overlay district and designate the boundaries of the new cannabis overlay district for the purpose of establishing the appropriate locations for the designation of cannabis overlay floating zones, permitting the operation of cannabis businesses in the state.
Thank you. I have nothing more to add. And the Economic and Community Development Committee did meet this past week, and I believe Councilmember Huff has a statement to make regarding that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chico. Let's get a motion before we get into that. I have a motion to approve to adopt the ordinance.
I'll move, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. Cavacci. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Gilbert. Very good. You alluded earlier to fact you had solution 4.
So we did, as requested by council, Economic and Community Development Committee, relook at the map amendment, in particular the east side of town. At the end of the day, all things considered, the Economic and Community Development Committee recommends proceeding forward with said east side intact for a variety of reasons, two of which I will briefly mention here. While I understand some of the concerns that we received, some of the complaints that we received from some of the other tenants in the Fairgrounds Village Shopping Center, with mainly one tenant in particular leading the charge, some of these complaints are not necessarily inherent to the type of business the dispensary is. Personally, as a commercial landlord myself, I well know that, tenant to tenant complaints are not uncommon. You know, particularly as they relate to a particular tenant taking up too much parking or delivery truck parking in the parking where they shouldn't park, or someone using a handicap spot when they're not supposed to. They are all very much kind of classic commercial landlord complaints among tenants. And, you know, I feel like I think the committee and definitely myself personally feel like these issues are really issues that should be mitigated and addressed by the landlord and not necessarily us via our zoning codes and maps. So I understand the concerns, but I don't know that we should be using our zoning code and maps to address that. Number two, if we remove the cannabis overlay district from the east side of town, we would make the dispensary a non-conforming use. Mind you, when the dispensary opened up as a medical cannabis facility, they obtained all the necessary approvals from us. Then state law changed, allowing them to also sell for recreational purposes, which they obtained permission from the state to do so. Now make the dispensary a non-conforming use is problematic for them, as well as would argue for us for a variety of technical issues, which I won't necessarily drone on about. But one of the main points I do want to make is that there is language within the state law that kind of implies that it might not be a wise idea to make them a non-conforming use. So I don't think it would be a good idea for us to go down that road. I am certainly willing to answer any questions anyone might have on council regarding that, but I plan on voting in favor of the map amendment ordinance as originally introduced, and hope all of you will do the same. My vice chair, Councilman Kavachi, might have a few additional thoughts you want to add, but those were the main points I wanted to make about our discussions in economic and community development.
Anyone else?
Mr. President.
Mr. Flash.
So, not to contradict you on much, but there is one thing I did want to mention that is a divergent from what you said. On the parking in the handicap spots, that actually is a public law enforcement issue. The chief sent folks up there to address that, and tickets will be issued to delivery vehicles if they do park in those handicap spots. That's been made very clear that that's no longer going, and that does fall within our responsibility to enforce that. And as well as the police department has gone up and they have had some conversations related to just in general some of the issues, but 100% this is predominantly a landlord tenant issue. So I just wanted to point that out, and everything else you said is accurate. Unfortunately, to change this zoning, number one, doesn't address any of those issues. Even if we change the zoning, it doesn't change anything. We can change it, we can pull it away, and that business will operate identically tomorrow as it does today if we change that zoning. So it does nothing in terms of changing any of the behavioral issues or problems that may or may not be happening up there. So I wanted to point that out as well. So us taking action on changing this map doesn't address any of those issues that were brought to our attention. So
Thanks for adding that. Those are good points.
So, Mayor?
I just wanted to say thank you to the ECDC for coming back with this decision to the council. It's definitely one that I was hoping to hear. So both of these businesses can continue to move forward without any other hindrance. And Vera Life can continue with their proposed expansion in tech work as well. So thanks for your time on this that you put into going over this, and that this also has my full support.
So just to step back, sort of for the 30,000 foot level here. So at the last meeting, the reason why I suggested we delay consideration of this until this meeting was to give the committee and the staff a chance to take a look at some of the issues that have been shared with me, and then subsequently we received in a petition from some of the other tenants at the space there, at the shopping center. So I thought it was important to make sure that we took a look at those issues, and certainly some of them were policing issues, and again, I know that this has been discussed with Chief Ledwell and the city administrator, and the city will take the appropriate enforcement actions that we need to take care of some of those conversations that are taking place. But as we contemplated it and talked with our attorneys, we realized that we couldn't take an action that would eliminate their ability to continue to do business there. We couldn't remove their permission to operate there. And so the question was, if we took an action to change the map, to change the that what we would only be doing was preventing somebody else from coming in, or preventing any other changes from happening there. So we couldn't take action that would materially affect the business, and that's what Mr. Hoff, I think, meant when he was saying that we couldn't do that. I think that's the first of all. I think that was the important thing to remember there. So that being the case, I think that's the basic recommendation to us on those lines. I think it's important that that we continue to monitor legitimate things that we can monitor. Certainly, we will do that. But I think it's important that we recognize that the state is taking an interest, in how these operations are being permitted across the state, and that the law is written in such a way as to ensure, I think, that the state has decided as a public purpose in allowing these sales to take place illegally, as opposed to happening. And they want to make sure that that's not interfered with in a way that makes it more difficult for people to legitimately purchase cannabis, as opposed to having to be forced to do it illegally because it's not. I think we need to be careful about how we take this on. And I think so the committee is looking at other things down the road that
I think we are going to look at some of the distance requirements as far as if another dispensary wanted to come into those zones. I would argue while we want to certainly provide an opportunity, we certainly want our two existing ones to continue to exist. I don't think anybody necessarily wants to ride down the road and see dispensary after dispensary littering 140.
Right.
So I think we're going to be looking, and we'll probably bring that back within the next couple months, kind of updating some of the distance requirements.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. President, one more thing that we haven't talked about too. One of the things that we took under consideration was the fact that there's two areas, and when we originally laid that map out many years ago, and I was on council then, I think you may have been. One of the thoughts was we didn't want to have a situation where folks who live on one end of town, and particularly on this end of town, who frankly may not necessarily have access to, they may not drive, they may not own cars, we don't have robust public transportation, so they may not have access to the dispensary that's out in the business park by the airport. And one of our concerns was if we were to kill it up in that zone, and eventually the dispensary that's there would maybe go away and not have an opportunity to be replaced. It's a legal product, whether you like it or not, it is what it is. And if folks want to access it on that end of town, it would put quite a burden on some of those people to be able to go to the air park dispensary to access the product. So that was part of the contemplation on our part as well. And I just wanted to mention that.
And Mr. President, I will say that, and I do think it's important that both of our existing businesses or both of our existing dispensaries, are considerate of their neighbors and try to make sure they are run as well as possible, so to not be a hindrance to the other businesses that are around them. Because I certainly don't want I certainly don't want to continue to hear complaints coming back to us as a council regarding some of these issues. And the fact of the matter is that the business owner themselves can take some action to mitigate those kind of problems, as well as the landlord. So I would hope that both of the businesses and the landlords in those areas do their best to be good neighbors, because that goes a long way. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance number 2023-06, Cannabis Overlay District, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it. Ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Next item is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business of which I'm aware. Does anybody in the council have any unfinished business to bring up? Right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. There's no new business on the agenda. Anybody have any other new business to move forward? Hearing none, we'll move on to departmental reports. Ms. Impulse.
Thank you, sir. Did I have to have anything from the fire department?
No, ma'am.
Mr. President, we are rounding the end of the calendar year, believe it or not. There are only 4 council meetings left, I believe. Do you want to speak on the December meetings?
I would do as we adjourn, but I can mention now that, we will not be meeting on December 25th, Christmas Day. So, everybody can plan accordingly.
All right. Thank you for that. I know.
There's a, I'm going to worry more.
Okay.
See it before. Not in my life.
Staff certainly appreciates the time to plan for having 4 meetings instead of 5 meetings, and also spend some time with the loved ones as well. So thank you for that. Now, you've asked me to give an update on the Park Mobile process. So yes, so for the past, I'm ready to talk about that out loud now. For the past couple of years, the strategic plan has outlined a request to utilize more technology in all departments, right? And so one item that we've been looking at is a mobile option for parking. So we will, just in case anyone's listening, we're going to keep the meters in place. So if you love bringing quarters downtown, you can continue to do that. You will not need to use your phone. But if you don't love bringing quarters downtown, in the very near future, we will be working with Park Mobile to implement a virtual parking option, which means you pull your phone up, download an app that has your credit card information and your license plate number or multiple license plate numbers if there's lots of vehicles in your household. And then when you're ready to park, you park in your zone, you tell Park Mobile what your zone is, and you choose the amount of time you want to park for. You can sort of extend that as well. All of those signage that will be put up put up by Park Mobile, so you'll be seeing signs going around the city. That particular item came through the Finance Committee for their blessing recently. And our IT director has been working on that project for us. So I'm going to start tonight with Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Yeah, so we've gone through extensively with the contract, with talking to other municipalities, just looking for any gotchas, some more stories of what they went through, and everyone I've talked to has been thrilled with the solution. The only complaints we ever did hear from anybody was ones who didn't have enough cell phone coverage to run it properly, and to get more cell towers to make it work. But we are fortunate to have cell coverage here, so we are ready to move forward. So we should be signing soon, and then it'll take a couple months to implement, to go through the entire process and test. And then once the QR codes go out, it will be live. So as they start putting zones in, the minute one goes out, it will start working, even if it's just one zone configured as they start getting the rest of the city done. Other things to bring up, other than the fun stuff we're always working on in the background. We are wrapping up the camera install for Parks and Rec, so that should be done in the next 2 days. We already have access to some of those, so we're seeing them start to come online as the contractors get the cameras brought online. We've worked with, met with our police department to start trying to implement some GIS into their crime analysis and things like that. So we are now also making GIS easier to access from our environment to one less faster to remember. So we're working on that side. We just brought that online last week. We installed some new hardware at one of our locations, help strengthen some network security for our environment. And we have fixed the issue with the council meetings not showing up on the website. They are there now. So And that concludes our report. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Are there any questions for the IT director?
I have two quickly. Number one, love the haircut. You're almost here. Remind me, you mentioned cameras for Parks and Rec. I don't remember what that.
It was more for the city. Those are the ones we had talked about. We found a couple areas that were lacking. One was for the pool area. And we now have, they started implementing those last week for us, and we're just about to wrap those up and get them online.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mr. President, I just have one question.
Let's go.
Ms. Walls, the parking meters that are not working, will they be replaced or will they be just knocked down? And
We have
then-
supplies to replace them right
Okay.
now, so
Okay.
let us know if there's any that you're aware of, or if anyone's aware of them, just let us know, we'll get those replaced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the IT director? All right, moving on, I see the housing director hiding back here, let's go with them next. Mr. Brown.
I couldn't get away with it.
And
Good afternoon, actually, good evening, rather. And I wanted to provide a few highlights from housing on a couple of things. Last month, there were 836 families on our waiting list. During the same period, we had 276 vouchers under lease. There were 32 families in which we are administering on behalf of Carroll County. In other words, people get a voucher in Carroll County and they want to live in the city. So we work with Carroll County and do all of the paperwork and keep everything moving with respect to those families. 8 of those 32 are for veterans and enabling them to find supportive housing so that they can have a decent place and be supported in their new unit. We issued 10 vouchers last month.
It's not happening.
What they speak.
Almost 2,000 employees, and we're going to the practice with down because people no longer interested, we can't locate them for whatever reason. We'll clean those people up, and then that number may come down. But understand that while that number will take some people off, every day we're adding new people to the list. So it will come up and down, but it won't be as many, I don't believe, as it currently is now.
And a lot of times there's people also on the county waiting list, so if they actually obtain a county HUD certificate, they could go to another part of the county. They would no longer need the city.
That's correct. That's correct.
So just to, for that, thank you, and in my ballpark.
So we have a total of about 300 certificates available in the city, is that right?
We have
an authorization for 297. Of the 297 as of last month, there were 276 that were under lease out of the 297. But that changes.
How many, do you know offhand, how many the county has? On it, they administer?
I don't know off the top of my
And
head.
they administer for all the other municipalities.
They take everybody except for the city of Westminster.
We do.
They're responsible for that. But I'll send you the note.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Moss.
Very well. All right, let's,
Oh, Mr. Dale, did you have a question?
Mr. Brown, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that I send a lot of folks your way and I get a lot of really great feedback from folks when I follow up and ask them what their customer service experience was like. And I get a lot of really great positive feedback. So I really appreciate that. And I'm also getting a lot of good feedback about the rental license. Could you give us a brief report on that, please? Are we up or are we?
Yeah, we are basically up to this point, most of the people that had rental housing license over the last year have re-upped. We have a few stragglers, and then there's some people who are coming in with new licenses, either because they've changed ownership, or because as we go through our list and cleaning it up and just making sure that everyone is current, then we will find some that had not renewed, and we send them a notice that they failed to renew and strongly encourage them to renew. And most people have been cooperative in that process. There are some required a little bit more urgent, and but at the end of the day, they are. We have issued over 3,000 licenses. That's a license for each unit. Now, there may be some that have multiple units under different ownership entities. But when you boil that down, it's a little over 1,000 separate owners in terms of the 3,000 issues that we issue. For example, you may have some of the larger apartment complexes. The largest one, I believe, is 293 units. So it's 293 licenses, maybe for one ownership. No, okay.
Well, we used to get a lot of feedback about the rental license program. And so I really appreciated and enjoyed not getting a lot of that feedback. Some of the feedback that I've gotten just recently, you handled it extremely well, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
That'll be all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dale.
Mr. President, are there any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Don't believe so.
Okay, we will move on to the Public Works Department. Thank you for your kind words about how the Main Street project is going so far. Everything that Councilmember Gilbert mentioned during her comments is also available on the city's website. The city's website will soon have a project thermometer thanks to our IT department. So you can, if you want to see how far along we are in the completion of the project, you'll be able to see that on the city's website. We have a special page on the left-hand side. You can also find it under services. That's called the Main Street Water Main Replacement Project. On that page, there's also a reminder at the bottom of the scope of the project. So if you want to see a chunk of the map to see which phase is in which section, that's available online as well. So let's move over to the Public Works Department. Mr. Dick.
Thank you, Ms. Moss, and good evening. Besides the Main Street project, which we've already talked about, most of our Public Works is getting ready for the Oyster Stroll. We're in full mode for leaf collection. I'm sure everybody's leaves are getting picked up at this point. Truck maintenance for winter, we're still fine tuning the trucks, getting some salt spreaders on, things like that. So that's ongoing, as well as our weekly things that we take care of. We just repaired some inlets on Eden Valley and Church Street. Utility's been taking care of some service leaks here and there. So just things are just kind of running smooth. There's big issues happening, which is really great. Other than that, that's all I have. Essentially, has any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Dick?
Ms. Impulse?
First of all, I want to say thank you, and if you could extend my thanks to Steve and Zach as well, for the stop and everybody tour at the Streets Department building on last Friday afternoon. I think that, when the comptroller had asked, what the biggest challenges were, and to hear them both sort of talk about space and, sort of some of the building is just not functional for what we need that for anymore. I think that it was very well presented. And I was really happy to hear that dialogue take place in there. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And please extend my thanks to your staff.
Mr. President.
Mr. Dale.
We should also mention that we had the intergovernmental relations person here. We had our government relations person here, and we also had sugar shoot, Senator
Ben Holland.
And they were all impressed that they had the opportunity to actually see the projects. Several of them said that. And then they must all, of course, they all talked because they echoed some of the comments that Governor Westmore had, that he was impressed at the intercooperation that we had on all our various projects. So, big thanks for the opportunity to show them, the comptroller, the streets department. I did look up when it is that we moved over there. It was 1984, 1985 that we moved over there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, are there any other questions for Mr. Dick?
I do not believe so.
Okay, moving on to the Recreation Department, Ms. Gruber.
Good evening, thank you. The Recreation and Parks Department is busy preparing for the oyster stroll and also monitoring yet another disappointing forecast in our future. So we are also discussing at this point alternative plans for that particular event. Concurrently, we have another chance the following weekend. We put another event out on our city streets. October 21st is our Spooky Saturday event from 3 to 6 p.m. and also the dedication of the clock tower. So if Mother Nature has its way and dampens our spirits this Saturday, we can try again the following Saturday with yet another event. So if you have children who are eager to do a little trick-or-treating, listen to some great children's music, wear that costume more than once, please join us on Saturday, October 21st from 3 to 6 p.m. Main Street will be closed from Railroad Avenue to Longwell Avenue. Our downtown merchants will come out and we will have vendors on the street where children can trick or treat, make crafts, play games, and have a great time. And then at 5 p.m., our dedication of the clock tower occurs, and we are going to transport Main Street back to 1950s, back to the future style. We'll have a DeLorean on display and some other really great cars from the 1950s time period. We're gonna do some fun stuff. We're gonna have a 1950s dance contest, bubblegum blowing contest. We're gonna serve up root beer floats, but most of all, we're going to welcome our city council members to Main Street so that they can cut the ribbon on our beautifully restored clock tower. So we would love to see all of you out for that. And then that particular event concludes with a free showing of the movie Back to the Future in the Armory Gymnasium. So we encourage everybody to bring their blankets, serving up free popcorn and showing the movie. So lots of good things and fun things happening despite some damp and rainy weather heading our way. So hope to see you all there. Thank you so much.
So, did I understand correctly, if we do get rained out this Saturday, we can do the oysters the following Saturday, or is that?
No.
I was hoping that was what. Yeah, right. I mean, why not?
Trick or treat for oysters.
Council President.
Mr. Hawk.
I just wanted to compliment Ms. Gruber on the job that you all and everybody that's involved in these events, all the different departments we do a phenomenal job with our events, and when I have friends, as you well know, I have lots of friends that come up to these events. The compliments I get, whether they're from DC or Baltimore, is just how impressed they are by the kind of events that we have and the quality of the events. They are frankly shocked. And I'm like, I told you so. But I also, you were speaking of the potential for upcoming rain. I do not envy you, because I think a lot of people don't understand all the work that goes into these events and the complications, quite frankly, because we have vendors that are preparing for the event, and you can't cancel it at the last minute. You got to give them enough notice. These are really complex, complicated decisions, because we want to have quality events for when people come out. But we also need to think about all the vendors that come out to our events and kind of weigh all that together. So I guess what my point is, great job, and I don't envy whatever decision you might have to make over the coming days. So good luck.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Mr. President, are there any other questions for Ms. Gruber?
Mr. Dale.
Recently, the mayor had an excellent community meeting in Wakefield Valley, and I've had several folks get back with me about the handouts and the flyers. Did we just present the and we get those in the because I've had several folks ask for them.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay, that would be great. That would be
Yeah,
great.
the flyer was at the meeting. Right, we had a flyer at the meeting.
Were there 2 or 3?
No, there was just one.
Was there just one? Okay. Okay. Yeah, if we could have them so that we could be force multipliers and ambassadors for the excellent Rec and Parks Department, that would be awesome. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. President, are there any other questions for Ms. Gruber? Hearing none, we will move on to the Planning Department. Mr. Depot.
Thank you and good evening. On October 3rd, the Board of Zoning Appeals voted to go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. Following the closed session, the Board of Zoning Appeals again opened its public meeting and voted to reopen case 2303, a request for a special exception to add a firearm transfer service home occupation use at 231 Stacy Lee Drive. They also approved case 2305, a variance to the setbacks of an accessory building to make structural alterations to a garage at 460 East Green Street, and approved case 2306 to allow the change of an existing non-conforming use to another non-conforming use to operate an automobile body shop completely within the structure at 247 East Green Street. On October 4th, the Historic District Commission discussed its implementation plan and preparations for the nation's 250th anniversary. They reviewed architectural elevations for a 4-unit multifamily dwelling use at 288 East Main Street and requested that the applicant return in November to address the 2016 design preferences standards for new development in the Historic District. And the Historic District also voted to reschedule its November 1st meeting to November 8th at 7 p.m. due to attending the annual Heart of Civil War Heritage meeting. On just an update, the Farmers Market's fall kickoff event is this Thursday, October 12th, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Conaway lot. This is to promote that unlike other farmers markets, the city remains open on Saturday mornings up until November 18th. So again, it's a kickoff event, just as a reminder that the farmers market is still occurring in the city of Westminster. On October 16th, the Planning and Zoning Commission is tentatively scheduled to hear a site plan SS 2304. This is to convert the previous Chase Bank building to include outdoor seating and a drive-through for a Starbucks at 202 Clifton Boulevard. And site plan SS 2304, this is to add a car wash for the existing Len Stoller Chevrolet dealership at 900 Baltimore Boulevard, and pursuant to the BZA case 2301, the special exception car wash may not be open to the public and shall have its own water meter. And also, on October 17th, the city will be holding the 28th Annual Community Forest Workshop to be held at McDaniel's College. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. President, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Depot?
Questions for Mr. Depot?
Hearing none, we will move on to the finance department. Saunders?
Thank you, Ms. Imhoff. I'll just give a quick update on our preparations for our fiscal 23 audit. We've been in contact with our auditor and started that planning process, and the field work for our single audit, which will include the housing department, as well as any other federal funds that we receive, will start field work on Wednesday, October 18th. And then for our financial audit, our anticipated field work will start on Monday, November 13th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. Are there any questions for the finance director? We will wrap up as we always do with the police department. Chief Lepo?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few things tonight. In addition to the 4 police recruits we have in the Carroll County Sheriff's Office Academy, we have a new police recruit who will start tomorrow in preparation to attend the Frederick Police Academy next Monday, beginning next Monday. Thanks to Department of Public Works Facilities Department, they've painted our lobby at headquarters in addition to our Criminal Investigations Bureau offices. And it's just a small thing on the scope of things, but helpful with morale and professionalism in the police department, so we appreciate it. Finally, we continue to address traffic complaints around town. One of the things we're working on right now is that we've got an increase in the number of complaints about what are called micro mobility vehicles, which include the standing electronic scooters, the e-bikes, and things of that nature, which are viable ways to get around town, but also need to follow the rules of the road, similar to a bicycle. So we're trying to work on both ends to ensure the safety and sharing the road with those vehicles, and also making sure that we're educating individuals that they can't ride on the sidewalks. They should be riding with the flow of traffic and following the rules of the road, similar to what bicycles are required to do. So we're doing a combination awareness education right now. And then obviously if we don't have compliance, then we'll move into enforcement mode. The way we handle our speed complaints is that we currently have 3 of the speed feedback signs, and they're good tools for a number of reasons. First, we can put them in either stealth mode or flashing mode. In stealth mode, we typically put them out because it gives us a more accurate indication of the extent of the problem and when it's occurring, what days of the week, and what time frames, which then allows us to be out in a more efficient and targeted manner. And then we put the sign into flashing mode, and that gives the feedback to individuals. I know I've run through them in certain locations and you don't realize that you picked up speed a little bit and it caused you to slow down. So it's helpful in that way. And then we follow that up. Number 1, we assign a liaison to the complainant so that they know we're being responsive to their reported issue. That liaison then gathers all that information, pushes it out to our patrol in the targeted timeframes. We do what we need to do with enforcement. And then we follow up, the liaison will follow up with the community member to figure out, get a temperature as to whether it's calling the issue or not. And then we'll close it at that point with random checks following up. So we continue to do that at various locations throughout the town. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Are there any questions for the chief?
I just want to say I'm pleased to see those, whenever you put it on Green Street, Chief, because despite the fact that the Green Street project has gone so well, we still have an uptick traffic on Green Street. It's nice to remind people that residential neighborhood, we should be racing through this. So neighbors see it as well.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, that concludes the departmental reports.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Imhoff. Final item on our agenda is citizen comments, where we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues that pertain to tonight's agenda or any other city issue. For citizens not attending the meeting, we invite you to send us your comments or concerns via email at comments@westminster.gov. westminstermd.gov. All comments received by email will be shared with the mayor and council. Commenters should include their address and phone number with their comments. I will now invite comments from anyone who is present here this evening. I'll remind everyone that this is an opportunity for the public to share their thoughts and concerns with the mayor and council. Our role at this point is to listen to the comments and respond as appropriate after consultation with staff and each other. And so is there anybody here present tonight who wishes to be heard? If so, please give us your name and address for the record. Everyone present. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Melanie Nelson and my address is 46 Chase Street. And I have a handout for,
Okay.
so. Sorry, I don't know who to start with.
We'll back from the wall.
So I'm here to propose a renaming project of two city properties, Kings Park and Kings Lane, to be called Snowden Park and Snowden's Lane respectively. And briefly, I will tell you a little bit about why I think the name should be changed, why I think the Snowden name would be an appropriate new name, and give you a little bit of context. So the King family bought the property in that part of the city in 1908, King Park, but the property extended up to West Green from Kings Lane over to Bond Street. And there is some information that's come to light. The first was an article from a newspaper from 1927 that was passed to me by someone who lives in the neighborhood. I provided it in your packet. This article describes a very large Klan rally that was held on this property. I'll just read a couple sentences. 600 to 700 men and women, garbed in the regalia of the order, gathered in the field of Charles King. They then go on to describe a parade that went through the city. And at the end, after the parade, the services and the burning of the fiery cross were continued on Mr. King's place. So that article brought to light information that I thought was relevant. And then I continued to do some research, and what I found was that over the years after that, the King family began to develop that property, dividing it into lots to sell off, which is of course appropriate. They wrote the deeds for those lots that all had in them clauses. And the clause that the King family used when they sold these lots, and I'll quote from their deeds, that no part of the land conveyed shall be sold or leased to any person of African, Oriental, or Mongolian descent. These deeds I found that were spread out throughout that neighborhood. I didn't obviously check every deed, but just a spot checking, I found them on West Green, Anchor, Chase, Westmoreland, Bond Street, all written by the Kings. And it wasn't just Charles King who initially bought the property, but when the property transferred to his wife, Clara, the deeds also included the clause. Their daughters also deeds included the clause. There was one example where I didn't see the clause, and it was when one family member sold it to another family member. Presumably, they didn't include the clause because they were already in agreement. So for those reasons, I think that the King family may not be the best namesake for the property. And so then the next question is, who do we name it after? So I did some more research, and I found that the owner prior to the King family was a family named Snowden, John M. Snowden. He was a prominent African-American businessman. He is buried in Ellsworth Cemetery that Councilmember Hoff just mentioned. He was an extremely engaged and well-respected citizen. I looked through the archives of the newspaper. I found that he was repeatedly elected to the school board. It was the African school board at that time, because schools were still segregated. He was thanked in the newspaper for volunteering his time to help dig the foundation of the Baptist church here in Westminster for free. He was a trustee for the Union Street Methodist Church. People wrote about going to his orchards and having picnics there because he used the land, he farmed it, but he had many fruit orchards, which people obviously got to enjoy it. And he also pulled together people of the community after the Great Fire of 1883 in Westminster to calm nerves and allow people to come together in a unified way to rebuild after that big fire. So I think that John M. Snowden would be a great new namesake. He owned the land, so he has a personal connection to it. He was well respected, but it also provides an opportunity to celebrate this community and how diverse and vibrant it has been. And so that is why I have suggested that Snowden be the new name. Now, I think that it's important for us to retain history. So I'm also proposing that we would put a sign in the park that tells a little bit of the history. I provided some language on a handout that could be used. And in the process of doing this, I've consulted a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of citizens, all who have been very supportive. The Carroll Citizens for Racial Equity have provided a letter of support in your packet. I spoke to the people at Elkhorn Cemetery who confirmed that that is where John M. Snowden is buried. St. Paul's UCC, a letter will be forthcoming from them. Their pastor Marty mentioned it at the joint services of St. Paul's and of the Brethren Church, and I've already gotten people emailing me since that time. Those are the two churches most closely located in King Park. And I also met with the Carroll County NAACP chapter. They unanimously voted to support this renaming project. A letter from them is forthcoming, but Councilmember Dayhoff was at that meeting, so he can attest to that as well.
Okay.
Yes, it is
Not from me, but from the secretary.
Yes. So one of the reasons that I cast a wide net in terms of who to consult and talk to, I don't think this is a decision that should be relegated just to the people perhaps who live adjacent to the park. For a couple of reasons. One, it is possible that there may be legacy families who might have benefited directly from King's practices. And also it's very clear that King's practices has led to very low racial diversity in that area. So it's important to me to consult with our broader community to identify who would be a good namesake for that region. But also a park is a community space. It's for all of us, and it should be a place where everyone feels welcome. So just in closing, a couple of details that might be relevant when you're thinking about this. King Park was bought by the city of Westminster in 1980 from the King family for the price of approximately $100,000. It is my assumption that since the city bought the park, they named the park and therefore can rename the park. I hope that is true. The lane that I've mentioned, King's Lane, there are no residents with that address, but it's a lane that runs from Main Street to Chase Street, to where the park is. It had been previously called Mormont's Lane. It was named after the person who owned it before Snowden. For some reason, Snowden's name never got on that lane. It was then changed to King's Lane somewhere in the 40s. But it seems as well that that would be a city property that could be renamed. There are two other little strips there next to the park. One is Kingsview Court that has one building on it, and there's Kings Drive that has 4 houses. I initially did not include them in this proposal, but since I've been talking about this and other people have been talking about this, 2 days ago, someone came up to me and said, I talked to 3 of the people who live on that drive and they want to change the name as well. They are interested in petitioning for that. So I've put in your little packet, there are, the various information about land records and stuff if you want to go into the archives and dig those out. I'm also happy to provide any additional information that might help you in this decision. So thank you very much for listening. If there's any clarifying questions, please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Milton. Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Wallace at Carroll Chiropractic, And I am the spearheader of, this whole Fairground Village Shopping Center, the dispensary. So I have been in Westminster practicing for close to 24 years. I originally rented from Don Myers Studios Music. I moved over to the Fairground Village, which was subsequently sold, Mr. Katz to somebody else, to the current landlord, Jim Kohler. And so Jim unfortunately acquired the shopping center with the dispensary in there. And the dispensary was originally zoned or renting with a medical marijuana ordinance, or whatever you want to call it. So the traffic was bad enough. The current tenants, including myself, and I sent a letter to people at the request of one of my patients, I won't mention names, that works with either the county or the city, that was getting her haircut at Sheer Design, who has also had enough with the parking situations and the traffic in the shopping center. And that's why most of you got your letters that I sent out. So the names that were on the letter that I had written were from the Cutting Garden, Sheer Design, Starting Light Bakery, the barbershop next door signed it, Lori from Lee Bistro, myself, the dance studio, and Rick from Sergio's. Okay, and I didn't bother going to the other end of the shopping center because I don't think they're affected as much. So we're all having the same issues with the parking and the type of clientele that are frequenting the dispensary. This is a family shopping center. There's children and families that frequently attend the shopping center, go to it. But it's hearsay, but as the dispensary moved in, there was never a parking study done. And I think there's about 150 parking spaces. It was said to me that there are 600 customers from this dispensary alone per day entering into the business. There's just not enough parking. So the city and in the city ordinance or the city limits help to pick. There were a few locations, and it was said to me that they wanted to keep the dispensary near the medical offices, which would be across the street, Hopkins and MedStar, I guess. But they've grown now to more than just medical. There's a whole new business there. This is not just medical. So the amount of traffic has at least doubled within the shopping center. And there have been numerous accidents. Pedestrians are at risk. I spoke to Mr. Kohler, who is going to put speed bumps in the shopping center. The day I wrote this letter, I just had enough. I literally almost got hit twice, once leaving for lunch and twice leaving for my shift afterwards. Vicky from Sheer Design had an issue. She almost got hit. So that's just the parking and the amount of traffic that's entering into the shopping center. I don't think there was a parking study done to see if the shopping center could handle that type of a business that was, I think, directed to move in there partially by the city. So now that the second half of the dispensary, which is now recreational, is in there, there was no parking study done, and the parking lot just can't handle this amount of volume. I don't blame the current landlord, as he had purchased the building with the dispensary already in there, not having the recreational part of the dispensary as part of their business. I don't blame the dispensary. They're trying to run a business, and I think they got busier than they ever anticipated. So, who's to blame? I don't think anybody. Something just needs to be done. As far as the delivery vans coming in. I'm under the impression that the deliveries are supposed to be done behind the building and not in the front of the building. I don't know if that's a state ordinance. I don't know if that's a city ordinance or a county ordinance. I don't know, but it's my understanding that these deliveries are supposed to be done behind the building, not in front. So as they move into the front of the building and they unload their goods, they were parking in the handicap spots. Now, if it's after my hours or my lunch break, I don't really care because it doesn't affect me. Although it really isn't fair to the people that are handicapped. And all of our businesses need these spots, especially me, and even the dispensary, because they have their medical clients walking in. And so these spots are really necessary. And yes, what really pushed my final button was when I asked one of these people to please move your vehicle, you're in a handicap spot. He called me an asshole, excuse my French. I don't think that was nice. And I just held my composure. I said, fine, I called the landlord. The landlord said, there's nothing I can do anymore. They won't listen to me. Call the police. So that's what I started doing. Excuse my French. So that's the only thing I can really think of now is to call the police when they parked in the handicap spot. So, but it's not just the delivery vehicles. Their clientele pay no attention to any of their surroundings. And a lot of their folks, so I look out my windows and I see who's parking where. And all day long, they are parking in the handicap spots. It's people without handicap stickers. So there's one car in the handicap spot. There's another car with a handicap sticker. Luckily found the space, and it wasn't even my patient in the front of our building to frequent one of the other businesses in the building. So again, it's a business. They have every right to conduct business. I don't think they belong in a shopping center like this. They belong in probably a separate building where they have parking. Maybe they could do a drive-through. You know, I was also under the impression, I don't know if the laws had changed, where they were supposed to only deliver in the pickup spots. So there were 4 pickup spots designated, not legally according to the landlord. He just had to do it to appease them and whoever else was responsible for granting them a charter to do business. So they're delivering packages all over the parking lot. People are smoking weed in the cars. Now, I didn't know who to call, and I didn't want to go down this road with anybody with zoning. There were times in the beginning, the marijuana smell was so potent in my office that we finally figured out most of it. Jim, the landlord, put in fans. He had to bust a hole in the walls as it took on more space. So there are times I walk into my office and you're a landlord. So what do you do when one of your tenants smells the weed with patients that might be allergic to it?
I'm not supposed to comment while you're commenting, but we can talk after the meeting.
Okay. So still there's a faint marijuana smell sometimes when my staff walk in. There are times it does get bad. I have to call the landlord agent, see if their fans are on. You know, it's just one little thing after the next. I know the dispensary does not want trouble. They haven't been horrible neighbors. I just don't think that, I think they've outgrown the space and something really should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walls. Anyone else here who wishes to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that. I'm Kim Boucher. I'm a lobbyist and I'm a consultant for the dispensary. Totally agree. Rick is here as well to speak on behalf of the dispensary. We had no idea how quickly and how fast we were going to grow, right? No idea. And when rec became rec, as we did research across the country with other states and how they grew, we had no idea what was going to really happen here. We had projections, but we had no idea about volume, right? Until we're up to now 600 to 700 customers a day, right?
coming in and out, spending about 15 minutes or so. In the very beginning, when rec became rec, it was longer because people were coming in and had questions in the back of what was going on and what the product was all about and what was going to work for them, right? Agreed with the exhaust when, you know, the buds come in and they have to cut them and do what they have to do. That's when the smell gets crazy, right? And that's when the landlord came in and put in that exhaust fan. We don't want that smell going to other businesses, of course. Do we want to have happy neighbors? Yes. Should we be conversing more with them? And that's what we're starting to do now. Jeff and I had a great conversation today, and hopefully those will continue with all the members in the plaza. Is that the best space for us? No. Are we looking at other places where we can go? Absolutely, right? As we all know, it's not easy to find a place because we're looking at marketability as well, and we don't want to be on a back street somewhere. We want to be very visible, very easy access on and off for people to come and do what they have to do. Right. So with that, I would invite any one of you to come to the dispensary and see how it operates and see what we do. We're making changes. As far as the parking goes, you know, we made that change today that the staff are going to park in a different area. They can't park out back because there's not designated parking, but they're going to move from where they generally park to give space for folks that come to see Jeff that can walk down the walkway and stay on the walkway and not have to go through the parking lot. I mean, I've dodged cars there all the time going through. It's not safe. So we're gonna have the staff do that, park elsewhere. We're talking to our delivery people to see if they can come at different times to make it more accommodating for the other businesses. If that can happen, we're gonna be talking to the landlord about making it more secure in the back, fence-wise, of what we can do to have those deliveries come in the back door, right? Do they come out front? Yes. Did they park in a handicap spot? Yes. Did we make those changes then after they parked in that handicap spot? Yes. The managers cannot accept a delivery until they go out and look and see where that van is parked, right? And if they're parked in a handicap space, they're not to take that delivery. They need to move, find another space to park, and have the delivery happen. We're getting there. Those are my 2 cents. I know Rick has some information to share as well.
I'm
so sorry. 1208 Woodland Court, Hampstead, Maryland. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir.
My name is Rick Glass. I'm the community liaison for the dispensary in Westminster. Here in any my address 4080 Millstone Drive, Hampstead, Maryland. Hearing anything negative around cannabis is very, very concerning to me. I've worked really hard in this community over the past couple of years to try to change minds and change the stigma about what cannabis is and what cannabis isn't. I know it's saved my life and I know it's helping our veteran community every single day and also a lot of other people as well. So I want to make sure we're constantly keeping our neighbors as happy as we possibly can, because that's part of my job is to make sure the community is happy with what we are doing in the community as well. I can bring up one thing as far as the parking goes as well, which my general manager has on file. But we don't open until 10 a.m. and our employees usually don't get there until about 9:15. We have seen through our camera system that the first 3 or 4 rows of that parking lot are completely full. We don't know if they're full by, some of the businesses aren't even open. We don't know if it's the other businesses, employees. We don't really know what it is. But that parking lot is an issue and we definitely know it needs to be fixed. As far as some of our clientele or saying they're smoking cannabis in the car, we personally can't go there. I don't know what they're smoking. We don't know what they're smoking. Even if they leave our shop with cannabis products, we're not in a place to say what they are smoking in the car. They could be smoking CBD, they could be smoking tobacco, they could be smoking all different kinds of things. So it's kind of puts us in a weird spot as well. We know the volume has definitely increased, but we just want to make sure we try our best to keep everybody happy and see what we can do, to work in the future. But I just wanted to definitely bring that up that I know the county was in favor of it, 59%, but 41% is still a pretty large population as people who weren't in favor. And I hope this kind of stuff can get brought up before it gets brought up here. I want my information or anybody's information to kind of be out there. So if somebody has a question, comment, or concern, it can be kind of discussed first, and then we can try to see what we can do to figure it out before having just a lot of button heads. So I really just hope that we can figure out some things in the future to keep everybody happy, and we'll constantly work to see whatever we can do to help everybody happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, does anyone else wish to be heard this evening? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda and the meeting. Our next meeting will be Monday, October 23rd. A reminder that we will not be meeting on December 25th. With that, without objection, this regular meeting is adjourned, and we will move into a work session in a few minutes. Thank you.